And we are live. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans. I'm your on-air host, Sara DiVello, and I am so excited to welcome today the incredible CJ Tudor on her book tour from London to give us the inside scoop on her brand new chilling book, The Drift. CJ, welcome to Mystery and Thriller Mavens. Tell us about this book.
Oh, well, thank you for having me.
Yay.
Thank you very much. Yes. So The Drift, The Drift kind of came about originally because I had the idea for it back in 2019, but I didn't, for various reasons, end up writing it till 2021. With me pondering on sort of what was the kind of smallest locked room mystery you could write. And I had this idea for a cable car that was kind of stranded thousands of feet above these, snowy mountains. And then, there's this group of people inside and a dead body. And I started thinking that'd be quite a cool kind of idea, but it really needed to expand a bit more for a novel. So that set me on thinking about sort of maybe kind of 3 different locked room mysteries that all kind of connect. So essentially The Drift is 3 stories. It's an isolated snowy location. We don't say exactly where. There's a snowstorm raging. There are 3 protagonists in different locations. So there's Hannah, who's been evacuated from this boarding school in the mountains, but the coach that she and the other students are on crashes in a snowstorm. And Hannah and the remaining survivors find themselves trapped in this coach. For various reasons, they're unable to get out. And even more weirdly, the driver is somehow missing. Then we have Meg, who wakes up and this cable car stranded high above the snowy mountains in this snowstorm, and the power is cut, with 5 other people she doesn't know. They all come to on this cable car with no idea of how they've got there, and there's a dead body. And then our 3rd location is this isolated chalet known as the Retreat, where Carter lives and works with a group of companions, keeping this place running. The snowstorm is raging, the power's threatening to fail, they're kind of trapped inside. And if the power fails, it's not just what's outside the chalet they need to be worried about, because there's something in the basement that could cause them a lot of problems too. So all these sets of stories kind of seem separate, but they kind of come together. And there is a bigger backdrop, a sort of a bigger threat to all the protagonists in these kind of scary situations that we find out about. We suddenly start to realize, well, why isn't rescue not coming? Why isn't the power coming back on? Why are these people so isolated? There's something else weird going on here that kind of contributes to the whole story.
Well, nothing could be more terrifying than being trapped. I thought nothing would be more terrifying than being trapped in a snowstorm until I got to first Hannah trapped in a disabled bus or coach in an Anglophile British term.
Yes.
trapped with dead bodies in a snowdrift. The driver's missing. Then I thought, this can't get any more terrifying. Then I got to Meg, and I'm afraid of heights, and she's swaying on the cable line above the hundreds of feet above the ground, and then I think, okay, this can't get any worse. And then I get to Carter, so Tudor is just cranking the tension up quickly, and I can't wait to get to every single part because we got a lot to talk about, CJ. But first, I just want to welcome everybody. We are broadcasting live to 7 different destinations across Facebook and YouTube. So friends, mystery lovers, no matter where you're watching, you're in the right place. This is the right time. It is Mystery Monday, and because Mondays can be killer, we're going to make them a little less painful. So if you've been here before, you know how it works. And if you're new, welcome. We're so happy to have you. Here's how it works. Every Monday, I give you my handpicked featured authors, and you get to ask them anything. So ask CJ about her writing, ask her about her process, ask her about this book, this snowstorm, the Chalkman, anything you want. Let's get it going in the comments. We'll get them right over. Catherine says, hi, Sara and CJ from North Carolina. Hi, Catherine. Welcome. Sherry Brown says, hi, ladies. Hi, Sherry. Welcome. Hi. Great to have you. Darla says, hello from Portland, Oregon. Welcome, Darla.
Well, hello, Darla.
Yay. Katie Horn says, welcome. Hello from NYC. Hi, Katie. Welcome. John says, greetings from Northeast Ohio. Hi, John. Thanks for tuning in. Andreas is joining us from Morden, from YouTube, and saying hi from Morden. Loved the book, CJ, and thank you for sending the proof.
And brilliant.
Sherry says this book sounds so good. Sherry, it is so good. And CJ is coming on today to give us a special pre-launch glimpse into the book. So the book is not even out yet. It comes out tomorrow. So friends, you are going to want to get your hands on this chilling thriller, and you can pre-order it today, and the good folks at Murder by the Book will ship it out to you tomorrow. So here is that pre-order link. So click, order, and then you too can be immersed in the worlds of Hannah, Meg, and Carter with this fabulous book. Meanwhile, let's get to first some of the praise that this book has earned, and then we're going to dive right into your questions. So friends, start typing those questions while I pull up some of this amazing praise. So CJ, Publishers Weekly awarded you a star review. So first of all, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I'm going to pop it up for everyone to be able to read it together. And they rave that it is, quote, a tour de force. This is a masterpiece of its kind. First of all, I would get that tattooed on my face if anyone ever
I know, I was pretty thrilled.
So, CJ, congratulations. Tell us the secret to writing a tour de force, a masterpiece. How do you keep those pages flying? How do you keep the tension high? Give us all your secrets.
Oh my God, it's that thing when you write something, you actually don't have any idea really whether it's going to be any good or not. You start off with, this seems like a really cool idea, and then you're like, kind of like, how do I make this work and how do I hang this together? And it's a bit of a mystery to me, really. Whenever I get to the end of a book, I'm always very much like, wow, I seem to have managed to get to the end of this. How did that happen? I think I've made it all work. With the Drift in particular, I think because there are three separate locations, three sort of protagonists in separate locations, so they each have their kind of own storyline and their own story arc as well. So with this one in particular, I wrote each part separately, because otherwise I thought each storyline has to have its sort of moments of tension and its ups and its sort of downs and its cliffhangers for each sort of section. So I thought to keep the tension going in each section, I needed to write them separately. So that was kind of, I think, part of the key. And then I kind of chopped the chapters together. So it meant that going throughout, you were always kind of left with a cliffhanger or a question or a reveal at the end of each chapter, hopefully, so that, each segment, each protagonist's segment was as interesting as the next. You weren't kind of skipping one to get to the other bit that was more exciting. There was always something like tension happening here, cliffhanger, then we go here and there's something happening here. So that was kind of the feeling to kind of keep that momentum going throughout the whole book, and hopefully I think I achieved that. There's not a lot of downtime in the book, to be fair.
There is no downtime. No sooner do you stop sweating. I mean, you never stop sweating, because you're going from Hannah trapped in the bus with the dead bodies to Meg trapped with a death body swinging in the cable car above the snowy world, to Carter when clearly things are not going well and there's nothing scarier than a basement. Wait, so CJ, I just want to make sure I understand. So you wrote each one separately. So first you wrote all of Hannah, then all of Meg, then all of Carter, and then you wrote, wow. So who did you write first?
I actually wrote Carter first.
Okay.
Yeah. And I actually also, on the book, I also put an ending in place as well, which was quite nice to work backwards from an ending too. There's a feeling of sort of security when you kind of have your ending, if you know where you're heading to. And that was always in place. But yeah, it was in a way, it broke down the book, because sometimes I think as an author, you can sit there and go, my God, I've got like at least 400 pages of story to write, and the book can seem like a big thing. But because each section was kind of like, in a way, a long short story or a novella, it kind of broke it down into sort of manageable chunks, because there's a lot going on in the book and it's quite a complex story. So having it in those manageable chunks did make it easier. But then there was when I was cutting them together, because there's a lot of stuff with timelines and there's a lot of stuff with making sure that it all flows throughout. That was quite complex. I think we had 3 proofreaders on it, to be honest.
Oh my God, right, because you would need to keep all of them together, and then to bring it to, and then for the final, and it's so much. I love that. Catherine says she bought the UK edition. It is gorgeous.
Oh, thank you. I love
Yeah.
it. Yeah, both editions. I love them both so much. The US edition and the UK one. I think they really complement each other as well because they've got the same kind of typeface and stuff. Yeah, they work really well together.
I haven't seen the UK edition, but now I'm going to go immediately look that up because I love to look at different colors, different covers. So CG, how long did it take you to write this book? Because it is an undertaking, and with the three different, protagonists, and how start to finish, soup to nuts. You thought of it in 2019, but you didn't start writing it until 2021. Was it marinating that whole time?
It was. It was always a passion project because I'd say it's something a bit different from my other books. And when I initially sort of, floated it with sort of my agent and stuff, I was sort of contracted to write another book that I'd already kind of pitched. And so we had a discussion that maybe we'd keep this one on the back burner for the next one, after that sort of contracted book. But then as it turned out, lots of stuff happened between 2019 and 2021. We had the pandemic, and the book I was writing just didn't kind of work out. And I lost my dad at the same time. I think that contributed to sort of the book I was writing not working out. It kind of got wrapped up in all this horrible stuff that was happening. And I had to take the decision that I said I didn't want to put it out there because I wasn't happy with it. And I didn't want to put out a book that I thought might be subpar, that I didn't love. But all the time the drift was brewing in the background. So, hence, that became sort of the thing that kind of got me my writing mojo back in a way, because I wasn't having a happy time with the other book. And I loved writing the drift. I wrote it really quickly. I think I had the first draft down in 8-9 months. And then there was a lot of editing after then. It's probably 2 to 3 months of editing. But it just came out really quickly. It was like I had a whole lot of stuff I needed to get out with this one. And I think sometimes it just happens like that. You just get on a roll.
Yes, exactly. So you finally got on your roll. And first of all, I'm so sorry about the loss of your dad.
Thank you. It was a rubbish time, those, that sort of lost years for a lot of people.
That's a really good way of describing it. Let's get into some of these questions. Darla would like to know, at what age did you figure out you had such a creative mind for writing chilling thrillers? Chilling thrillers is a good turn of phrase.
I always wrote. I loved writing. I do think I was an only child. I am an only child. And I did, sort of live in a bit of a world of my own imagination. And it's funny the number of authors who also are only children say the same thing. And so I just was always creating these kind of weird worlds in my head. And I always liked creepy stuff. I think kids do. I mean, my daughter's 9.5 and she's the same. So even though it used to give me terrible nightmares, I was really attracted to ghost stories and creepy things. So all my stories tended to be quite dark and creepy. And then I discovered Stephen King at the age of about 11 or 12. And that was it, really. There's this is what I want to write. So yeah, it was always there. And I had this really encouraging English teacher called Mr. Webster. And he knew I used to like writing creepy stuff. And he used to lend me classic ghost stories and things and really encourage the writing. So I think that was sort of a good help as well.
So you would read scary things that would give you nightmares, but you kept doing it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I try and pretend to I remember being sort of 7 or 8 and trying to pretend to my parents that it was not the ghost books that I was reading that were waking me up screaming at night. But I was still attracted to reading those dark things. I think kids are, though. I think kids are quite macabre, aren't they? My little girl loves already sort of things that are a bit creepy. We just watched Wednesday together on Netflix, which she loves because she loves the Addams Family. Anything that's a bit dark and creepy, she's there. So yeah, which I'm proud of. Obviously, my work is done.
My work is done. I've passed this on to the next generation. I love that. Yeah, it's funny why do you think that kids like scary things that actually prevent them from sleeping, terrify them, but they keep wanting to do it. They keep pushing the button for more.
I think it's that attraction to things you shouldn't perhaps like or see or watch, perhaps, isn't it? There's that element of forbidden perhaps as well. That you shouldn't be watching this. It's scary. And then that opening the door, the door to see behind it, the forbidden door and things. I think there's an element of that. And our kids, you kind of grow up being scared as a child, don't you? There's lots of things you're scared of. Irrational, but not irrationally, because it's not irrational to be scared of the dark. It's not irrational to sort of, see that half open door or something and be worried something might creep out from behind it. And I think we grow up with lots of fears. Even fairy tales are quite scary, aren't they, at their heart? Fairy tales are not very pleasant a lot of the time. So I think, we sort of, you grow up with these sort of childhood fears and, and sometimes we don't know quite where they do come from. I think a lot of childhood things can be both very sort of sweet and innocent, but also very creepy, like dolls, doll, lovely doll. Dolls are terrifying, though, you know?
Right. Clowns. Oh my gosh.
Clowns, yeah,
Scary
all
things.
of that. Music boxes, Jack in the Box, all these kind of childhood things that are on one hand very sweet and innocent, but also as a child, you can see that kind of creepiness in them as well. So,
Right.
yeah.
Fascinating. Okay, Sherry would like to know, what did you find the most challenging part of writing this book? Yeah, so was it weaving it together? Give us the scoop, CJ.
Yeah, possibly. There were lots of sort of challenging bits of it. I think, you know, with something when you're writing it that's perhaps not slightly of this time, of this world, it's probably fair to say it's slightly near future. It's not necessarily happening right now. There's a balance of making things believable, you know, because it does draw on. It's probably not, you know, giving too much away to say the backdrop is it's set in a near future where there's been this viral pandemic, hence where these characters find themselves in this quite desperate situation. And as I had the idea before, you know, everything we all went through, but it became much more prevalent. It kind of was obviously more in my head when I did come around to writing it. So getting the balance on that right, because I didn't want it to be something that scared people off reading it, because the book itself is very much the thriller in this situation. And I was quite sensitive to that. And I think also in terms of timelines and plotting, it's very intricate plot. And, you know, I spent a lot of time going over it, looking for plot holes and, you know, driving myself insane, really.
Right.
You do have it's, you know, you can read a book like 30, 40 times. You will still, if you put it away and come back to it, go, oh my God, I can't believe I missed that bit there. So that was very tricky. So we had 3 proofreaders on it because there were lots of little details that all had to tie up together. And I think certainly with this book, that was you know the key, because I didn't want someone to read it and find a glaring plot hole that I'd somehow missed. And I think that's every writer's fear, that a book goes out there, and because, you know, it's a human process writing a book, isn't it? It's not like a computer can kind of check it and make sure it's all perfect. It's proofreaders and readers and editors, and we are human and fallible. And I didn't want it to go out there and, you know, have somebody go, did you know that? Or have you know?
Right.
So I think making sure that the plot is always watertight for me is one of the bits I drive myself insane over when it comes to writing a book. I don't even like it when proofs go out, because obviously proofs often go out uncorrected, and it drives me insane if I find, you know, errors, however tiny, after a proof has gone out. So for me, it's the plotting that I think is always the tricky part, and making sure it is really tight and people can't pick holes in it. I mean, obviously it's fiction at the end of the day, you know, with research and things, you know, I did quite a lot of research on various things for this book, but I always say, you know, with research, because it is fiction, because we have to stretch it a little bit sometimes for the story, it should always be possible, even if it isn't massively plausible sometimes, but it should be possible.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. So let's dwell on that a little bit more. So even if something is not, wait, say it one more time, so you just want to really absorb it.
I think when sort of research, obviously, if you're a writer, you have to stretch things creatively. You've got to have a little bit of license. So in my head, it's always, it should be possible, even if it's not that plausible, but it should be possible.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah, because when you're creating a world, you create the rules of that world, and so it has to still, even if it's a world that we have never seen or lived in, it has to be one that where the rules make sense.
Yeah, it's got to be something you could feasibly, and it could happen. You know, there are a couple of sections in the book where I'd sort of researched quite a lot, and people said, could you actually do that? I'm like, yeah, I did research that. You could. I mean, you're not likely to, let's face it, but it is possible.
Yes, exactly. And I want to talk about your research. Sherry's just saying, thank you so much for answering my question. I love your answer. Yay. That's great. Thank you so much for asking, Sherry. So CJ, let's talk about your research process. So what was that like? Were you in cable cars? Did you ask them to halt it halfway? Did you see body? Did you go to a remote ski chalet retreat? Were you in a lab? What's going on?
I actually didn't for this. There was a lot of imagination involved. I did do a lot of research on cable cars, a lot of research on cable cars. And so, you know, pretty much a lot of that is factual, but I did take some creative license with a couple of bits. Even though a lot I did research because of the way I wanted a couple of things to work. So there is a little bit of creative license with a couple of aspects, but I did want it to be roughly, you know, factual as much as possible with how mechanisms and things worked. And funnily enough, the chalet itself, and I really should have done, shouldn't I? I should have just gone, I really need to go to a lovely, beautiful, wonderful remote chalet in the mountains somewhere for research, preferably with a hot tub. That would be good.
A hot tub, a daily massage,
Yeah,
a luxury 4-star meal. This should have been part of your research.
Should have done that. Funny enough, the thing I researched most interestingly was the coach, because I think with research, it's the mundane things that can catch you out, because not everybody's going to, the chalet could be very much a work of fiction. Even the cable car, we don't kind of all go on cable cars day to day, as long as it's realistic enough to be, to be possible. But coaches or a bus, most people have been on a bus, So things like the mundane details of that, I felt had to be accurate, because someone would pick up more on if I'd got a very simple, basic thing wrong on that. So, the most glamorous part of researching was actually going looking around. We have a company that does, buses and stuff down the road from where I live, was going and crawling around and asking them questions about their bus and their toilet, how they get out with the windows and the little hammers. So, basically investigating coach toilets was a very glamorous part.
Very glamorous.
If you read the book, you'll know why.
Right, because when the bus tips over, the bathroom is tilted, but it's still functional. And I thought, when I read that part where Hannah's thinking, oh, the toilet's still functional, thank God, I was thinking, oh my God, like I hadn't mentally gotten that far yet. And I was thinking, that is a problem, because I've taken coaches or buses, and you do need. And
the toilet does become a key part of the plot as well. So it had to be plausible.
Okay, I think, CJ, your next book should take place on a warm tropical island, and there should be no toilets involved, so that your research process, there should be like, the research should hang on a sarong or something, or coconuts or fruity drinks. That way you can research that.
Definitely, I know, and I haven't. The next one's set in Alaska, so I'm like making a rod for my own back, aren't I?
CJ, do you like the cold? Why are you choosing cold locations?
But we are going to Alaska. We're going to go in April, because I really wanted to make sure that I could go to kind of give it the right flavor and color and detail and things for that.
I've always wanted to go to Alaska because I want to see a polar bear. I want to see the glaciers. I want to see the salmon running. I'd love to see a bear. And there's really beautiful, beautiful things there. Andreas would like to know, CJ, what are you reading at the moment? So you just flew over to the US. You had a long flight. What did you read? What are you reading now?
I didn't read on the flight. I actually did some writing on the flight.
Okay.
And watched a film. So I was, because I thought, it's been so busy, and I thought, what? It's a 7.5 hour flight. This is prime. Sitting here writing time. I can't be disturbed. This is brilliant. So what was the last thing I read, actually? Because I haven't started a new book yet. I've brought a few books with me. Trying to remember what I brought with me. I brought proofs with me, because obviously the lovely thing is, being an author, that people tend to send you books. So it seems silly to go and buy books when you get sent lots of lovely books, and then it takes me a while to catch up in them. So right. I've brought The House in the Pines by
Anna Raves.
That is up there. That is on the top of my TBR pile. A couple of old ones. A book called Fever House by Keith Rossum, which is a proof that somebody is quite weird and horror-ish. The last book I read that I really loved and I was raving about was Sign Here by Claudia Lux.
Ooh.
That's just out in the US now. It's really, I love books that do stuff that's different with the genre. That isn't just a crime procedural or another sort of domestic noir. And this one was about, basically it's about a deal broker in hell who does the deals for people's souls. And he just has to get the soul of one more family to get kind of the complete set of family souls to basically earn his way out of hell. So it sounds kind of like quite fantasy. It kind of isn't. It's like very dark. It's like a mystery, because obviously there's a lot more to stuff. It all goes wrong, and it's slightly horror. It's very, very dark humor, but quite brutal in places as well. Ooh. But really human as well. It's all about relationships and the things we do or wouldn't do for people we love. And it's a great book. It really mashes up a lot of genres. And becomes sort of so much more than, it sounds like that by describing it. It's a great book, really good. And I love things that kind of defy sort of genre a bit. I really loved it. I thought it was great.
Ooh, I like that you support books and blurb books and
not as many as I want to recently. I'm so behind with my reading. I feel, and I do constantly feel guilty because I know what it's like when you send books to people hoping they'll, to read them. I do the same.
Right.
My writing heroes hoping they'll say nice things. But but obviously we're all busy, aren't we? We're writing, and sometimes I don't like to read stuff that's too similar when I'm writing.
So, who are your writing heroes, CJ?
Oh, I mean, there's loads of authors that I absolutely love. I mean, growing up, before I sort of got published, I've obviously read a lot of Stephen King, and I think for so many authors, he's an absolute hero. But I used to read a lot of horror as a teenager, so James Herbert, Dean Koontz, Stephen King, Clive Barker. A lot of horror, and that was kind of what formed me, really, in a way. And then I love Harlan Coben, I love Linwood Barclay, because I love people who like wonderful twists and reveals and sort of push the sort of concepts and things. So I was always a big fan of those writers for sort of thrillers and mysteries and things as well. And I read a load of Agatha Christie as a child as well. Again, Stephen King, Agatha Christie. I read Agatha Christie quite young. Those things that form you, really. But there are loads of brilliant authors now, and I was sort of now stumble and try and remember all the authors I love. I love Samantha Downing actually as well. I think she's a great author, again, because she does things that are different with the genre. So I really like her books too. Alex North I love as well. Who's with my publishers too, and a lovely bloke as well, but I think his books are great. So so there's oh god, I mean, honestly, if I actually had to sit and write a whole list of authors I love, I'd probably be here all day, and I can never remember when people ask me, but certainly those are some of them.
Well, that is a great list to start out with, and it's so fascinating to see who you admire. It's such a great question. So thank you for that question, Andreas. Sherry would like to know, if you were at a bookstore and you saw someone getting ready to buy one of your books, would you surprise them and offer to autograph the book? What a lovely question, Sherry.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially because it might hopefully convince them to buy it. I mean, I'd try and catch them just before they put it down and picked up another one.
That would be awkward. Yeah.
That would be awkward. Yeah. Unless
you can say, hey, I've heard that's really good. And then just wait.
This one is great. You should buy two. It's so good. You should buy two of those.
Yeah, exactly. You should buy them for all of your friends and family.
I think that would be fine at a bookshop, actually, because the worst thing is, and I actually haven't ever seen anyone out reading one of my books. That people have sent me pictures. They've seen.
You have not?
No, but it would be really awkward because you can't ask someone if they're enjoying it, can they? Because they might turn around and go, "My God, no, it's absolutely dreadful. I hate it." So.
Oh my gosh. Well, I think that day is coming soon. And Sherry says she would be so excited.
Oh, that would be brilliant. I would love to, but I still get really, because occasionally sort of in bookshops in the UK, if I'm in a bookshop, and you pop in, you can ask. But I never ask if I can sign the books, because I always think they'll just go, "What? Who? What? Who are you? Go away."
So they start grabbing their book, thinking you're
trying. No, you can't.
Get away! Oh my goodness. CJ, one thing that I really enjoyed when I was reading the book is that balancing, ratcheting the tension up between everybody. I mean, like we've said, you never stop sweating reading this book, but it's also balanced with moments of real introspection and laced with, I think, really beautiful writing. So one of the lines that really leapt out to me, which I had underlined, was, this is from Meg's point of view, trapped in the cable car. She says, "Lies were the grease that oiled daily life." And that line really stuck with me. So Meg is a former police officer in the before times, and that line, I actually stopped and reread it because I thought it was so beautifully wrought and so painful. Can you tell us about that line?
I think it was. I mean, I think she was talking to one of the other people in the cable car at that time, and basically trying to be kind by not delivering a harsher truth.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we all do quite a lot of the time, even from when perhaps as parents and we have children, and we don't want to make something too. We say it'll be okay, it'll be fine, even when we don't know whether it will be, because it's our job to offer reassurance. But lies can be good things. I think that they are they do sort of make. They are, as I said in the line, they sort of make life not just easier for us sometimes, but I think lies sometimes make it easier for other people. We talk about lies as if they're a bad thing, but lying isn't necessarily always a bad thing. Sometimes it's just the way to be kinder. It makes something easier for sometimes, someone will lie to you and they're lying to you, but you would rather they lie to you than tell you the truth. And I think we all do it, and we all accept lies from other people and sometimes know that they're not telling us the truth, but we don't actually want to know what the truth might be. So I think that's what we're sort of trying to say there, because in a way, in that situation, certainly it's like, sometimes what's the point of telling somebody a harsh truth and making it worse? It's that whole thing of optimist pessimist, isn't it? It's like, it doesn't change the outcome of the situation, but the optimist has a better time of it. So why make a situation worse by telling someone, it is going to be awful, we are all going to die, whatever, give people hope sometimes. And I think, that's the way we all sort of use lies. So, not always for a kind way. Sometimes we use them for our own benefit as well. But they do. They make daily life what it is, really. None of us would get through a day being completely honest, I don't think.
Ooh, interesting. So that is fascinating. I've always thought
I think of myself as a very honest person, actually.
Yeah, I'm always like brutal honesty. No matter how painful it is, I want to know. But
it's like when someone says, can I be honest or can I be truthful?
Yes.
Generally, it's like sometimes you want to go, no.
Right, because something bad.
You're going to say something I don't want to hear. So no, please.
Right. So CJ, if someone says to you, so if you sent your book to one of your writing heroes and they said, CJ, can I be honest with you? You would say no.
No. Please, write me a nice blurb that says I'm wonderful.
So okay, this is good to know.
Because people only ever, it's like saying, I don't mean to be rude, isn't it? Nobody ever says that unless they're gonna be rude.
Right, exactly. Or they say no offense. Listen, I didn't like your book. No offense. It's like, no, that is offensive. Because you have to compliment the baby, even if the baby's not a cute one.
Exactly what I was saying about lies. But I was saying my editor, both my editors are great. And they do a great job of basically making me feel like I'm the best writer in the world while sending me 3 pages of notes that really prove that I absolutely am not.
Oh my gosh, I love that. But they're still, hyping you up.
Absolutely, yeah. You're wonderful, apart from all this that you should change.
I love it. We have a mystery user joining us saying brutal honesty. I don't know. Honesty, yes, but brutal sounds mean. Yeah, I think you're honing in on a good point, and it's actually thank you for raising this, because it's making me think, I've always thought like, oh, brutal honesty would be best, but maybe it's not. I'm going to think about this. I'm going to process this. Darla would like to know, is there any character in the drift that you would call an honorable person? Interesting question.
I think they all think they are in their own ways to a degree.
Ooh.
I think, again, like the lies we tell ourselves, isn't it, are the biggest ones. With the people we kid the most are ourselves. It's funny how we can just so easily lie to ourselves about the reasons we do things and make ourselves the hero when perhaps we weren't. I find that quite interesting as well, how people are able to rewrite their own stories. And I think we all do it to an extent, to make ourselves look better. And I think in their minds that none of the characters would say they were bad people, but they all perhaps do bad things. I think perhaps Meg maybe is perhaps the one who's the most honorable if you had to sort of pick a person out of them. But I don't think any of the characters are bad people. I don't think certainly don't start out as bad people. But I think they all get forced into situations where they have to do things and make hard choices. And I think that's sort of the crux of their situations. And, I always like writing about, what most writers do, I think. People put in a situation where it pushes your characters. That's what writing fiction generally is. You're putting your characters in situations, where they're given limited choices and they have to kind of find ways to survive, or situations they have to get out of. And then sometimes they have to make sort of moral choices or immoral choices. And I think that's what's interesting to play with, really. And I think I often said, most of us, if pushed, would would probably be capable of worse things than we like to think. But I think everyone has a limit, and some people's limit would be further than others. But when it comes to perhaps protecting your child or your family, I think most mothers would say, I'd pretty much do anything, to protect my child. And I think that's interesting. And also, protecting ourselves, because inherently we are all wired to exist.
Right.
Self-preservation, it is the biggest thing. We're wired to keep on going and keep on living, even if that might be at the expense of other people sometimes. And I think what's interesting is who would perhaps find that less of a problem than others. And that's what's interesting with writing these characters, I think.
We are honing in on so many fascinating, really deep, meaty topics. And I think you're right, because, I notice in real life, people are very quick to say, I would never do that. I would never do that. And if we allow ourselves to stop and be present and to open our hearts and to open our minds and to look at the broader picture of what the person who has done something that you would, quote, never do, you are sure you would never do, when you stop and you look around at what brought them to this moment, of what their life is like, of what their family is like, of what their past, however many years has been to bring them to this moment, I'm not so sure that the thing that we would never do, because every living creature seeks survival first, whether you're a dog, a human, a turtle, whatever, you're seeking survival first, and you will do what you have to for yourself and your loved ones.
I mean, because you only have to see mothers with their children in a playground, or get their child first somewhere to know what they would do if it really came to it. I mean,
Exactly. And it's also, you're bringing up something else that's really interesting too, which is I interviewed former police captain turned best-selling author Isabella Maldonado. She has written an incredible Nina Guerrera series, The Cipher, The Falcon, A Different Dawn. And I asked her, Isabella, what was it like when she was the first Latina woman to become a police captain in her department? I mean, she's incredible and now has this best-selling career. Her J-Lo's doing her movie. It's fantastic.
Oh, wow.
And I said to her, what is it like? Bring us into the mind of the perpetrator. You've interviewed murderers, rapists, bad men and people, but often, let's be honest, men. And she said, what's interesting is in her entire career, in the many interrogation rooms that she has sat in with people who have done these violent things, not one of them ever saw themselves as the bad guy.
Yeah.
This is the bad guy, the murderer, the rapist, the thief, whatever. They do not ever, no one ever saw themselves as the bad guy. They see themselves as the hero of their own story. They had to do this because of what happened to them. And it's so fascinating. And I love that that we're honing in on this.
I think we're saying the book does that nobody ever sees himself as the bad guy, or like you're the hero of the piece. And it's amazing how, so even those extreme circumstances, people can still kind of like lie to themselves essentially, or go, it's not my fault because this happened to me, or I was put in this situation, or that person, or they did this. It is fascinating. Yeah. There's no I'm a terrible person, I did a terrible thing. No.
Right. I'm bad. I did the wrong thing. I did it on purpose and I don't care. That's a different person.
Yeah. I mean, there are those people as well. I mean, obviously there are, I think there's degrees, isn't there? When then you get on sort of sociopathic and psychopathic, not having any concept of it being a wrong thing because there's literally no empathy or understanding with other people, and that's again a different thing, I think. Yeah,
a different thing. Ryan is saying that he really likes flawed characters. Yes, they're relatable. Ryan, tell us why you like them. And Ryan is also asking where the best place to watch is. He's saying, I see comments that aren't on Facebook. So Ryan, thank you for bringing me up. That's a really great point. So we are broadcasting live to 7 different destinations. Some are on Facebook, some are on YouTube, some are in private book groups. We are broadcasting to my private Facebook group, Mystery and Thriller Mavens, where we continue the conversation. I'll post the link. Everyone is free and open to all. We're broadcasting to Murder by the Book. We're broadcasting to my author page. We're broadcasting to bitchy bookworms. We're broadcasting to thriller book lovers. So we are broadcasting so many places right now because people like to have options. So some people are boycotting Facebook and they watch on YouTube, which is totally great. And some people love Facebook Facebook. And so we provide something for everyone. He's further asking if there is a preferred place to watch. So it's totally wherever you prefer, right? Some people aren't on Facebook, so I give options for everybody, but everyone can you have to be on Facebook to see this, but you don't have to, anyone can access YouTube. So I provide options for everyone so that everyone can be part of the conversation, because that's what we really want to do, is just bring book lovers together. So you can watch anywhere you like. Thank you for asking. Nikki, welcome to the conversation, saying, oh, hi, I'm currently reading The Drift. It's so good.
Yay!
It's so good.
Thank
Nikki.
you.
Yay. Ryan says there's a book about white collar criminal kills. Why do they do it? It hits on how they frame their conduct and how they're blind to it. Okay, I'm immediately going to read that. Thank you.
Yeah, it sounds interesting, doesn't it? Yeah. But I think some people are. I think, as I say, it's interesting the degrees of how people will lie to themselves about stuff to frame it, that they think they're completely justified in what they're doing, or they don't see that what they're doing is wrong. It's really interesting, isn't it? I think the human mind and our degrees of deception. Again, it's like somebody saying, "I would never do that," and what, where our levels and our limits are of what's right or wrong or good or bad. Yeah, it's fascinating. And it changes depending on circumstance, doesn't it? I think as well, because if you have another thing I find interesting is that we all like to think we don't do bad things because we have a conscience, but I always say it's what people do when nobody is watching that tells you that person's character. Not what people do when someone's watching or keeping an eye on them. It's the things we do when someone isn't watching us, and are we actually inherently doing stuff because we think we're decent people and we wouldn't do it, or because we think we might get caught or someone who might see us. It's I think, isn't it? But if you take away that nobody's watching, no one's seeing you, there's no consequence.
Yeah.
Then, how do people act in that regard?
Well, now I'm wondering what you're doing after the show, CJ. Okay, y'all, we are over our time, but this conversation has been so juicy. We had to go with it. I just want to and just back to the thing about where you're watching from, I pop up all the questions from all the locations, so you're not missing out on anything, I promise. If you're on YouTube or Facebook, wherever you're watching from, I pop up all the questions and all the comments so everyone can see everything and we're all part of the same conversation. So don't worry, you're not missing out on anything. CJ, I wanted to talk about Linwood Barclay's feedback on your book, saying this is the wildest thriller of the year, and it is 3 thrillers in one. Buckle up. High praise there from Linwood.
I love Linwood Barclay's books, and he was very, very generous and very nice and very kind with that. Yes.
And Linwood is not the only one. The incredible Chris Whitaker.
Chris is a sweetie. I love Chris.
Raving that this is, quote, a truly terrifying ice cold chiller from the master of macabre. CJ Tudor should be everyone's must read list. High praise there from an incredibly
very high praise. He's brilliant as well. Absolutely brilliant.
Nancy saying this is such a great conversation. Nancy, thanks for joining us and being part of it. Y'all, the book is out tomorrow. Grab your copy today. You are not going to want to miss this one. Order from our favorite woman-owned independent bookstore, Murder by the Book. Here is that link. No matter where you're watching from, you can grab this link. Support a woman-owned independent bookstore, Murder by the Book. So you won't want to miss this book. Here is that link. Ryan is saying that we had this saying in college that you own your honor is the one thing people can't take from you. You have to give it away. Oh, I love that.
That's a good quote.
CJ, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you.
And for those who are watching in the New York City area, CJ and I will be live in person on Wednesday night at 6 p.m. at the Mysterious Bookshop. Be sure to come over and join us then. CJ will be signing books. Maybe she'll write something terrifying. We don't know. I'll go home and read it later, and then we'll start.
Never in person. Far too nice in person. Okay, terrifying.
I love it. CJ, thank you so much for joining us. Y'all, thank you for joining us. I'll be back at 7 and 8 p.m. tonight with Tracy Clark and Jane Harper live from Australia. So be sure to tune back in there. CJ, come back when your next book is out. This has been wonderful hosting you. What a juicy conversation. All right, y'all, that's a wrap. I'll see you tonight.